Welcome to the channel, welcome to the vlog Car Connections. This was gonna be a rough one for some of you folks that are hyper fanatic around the Hyundai IONIQ 5N. I don't know how there are other ways to put it, but basically listed this car for sale about 3 weeks ago. This car, guys, is turning out to be one of the worst purchases I have ever done on this channel. And part of it, to be fair, I think it's my fault. I think I got caught up with some of the propaganda driving these cars, and it got me excited. I got all riled up, and honestly, I ended up buying this car. But it's turning out to be one of the worst choices I've ever done. And I've bought a lot of cars, guys. And to be fair, I don't believe it's Hyundai's part. I think it's a fantastic car when it comes to performance. But if you look at my channel and you look at all the cars I've driven, this car just doesn't match who I am as a person. And I'll be the first to raise my hand that this is probably going down as one of the worst purchases I've ever done on the channel. I think a couple of things just to call out. I've talked about how the range is not the best. I'm glad that I have a home charger for this car, but I'm also very aware there's a lot of people that don't. And that could be a huge problem for people. Unless this is gonna be a secondary car where you just take it out to the track and that's it, because that's what this car is pretty much made for, guys. It's just a track car. I don't know if it's the best family car. It can be, but that range is just, you're paying, 68,000 with tax, title, and license. I live in the state of Texas. You're around 74,000 for basically 200 miles of range. And if you're doing some track time on this car, you might get 150. And so when you look at the practicality, the value the car brings, it's not great. I've talked about some other things around this car, specifically its refinement in an interior. I'm lost of words. I've shared some of my feedback on here around how everything is very tingy and plasticky, and that is true to this car. They're giving you a lot of performance, but they're cutting back on a lot of things. Know that when a manufacturer is giving you a lot of performance, they're typically going to cut a lot on its refinement, and they're going to cut corners elsewhere. And of course, they put a lot of emphasis on this car when it comes to performance. They give it a lot of horsepower, about 645 once you hit the boost button. Really good torque. It's all handling. It has great braking, but that's pretty much where the excitement ends. I knew very quickly after buying this car, and if you're a car person, you're about to understand my statement. After buying this car, within about 2-3 weeks of driving her, unlike my other cars, as I would take her, say, to a store to go shopping, I didn't really care where I would park it. That was symptom number one. I always care where I park my cars because I don't want them to get door dings. So symptom number one for me that this car was a bad idea for me was that I just put her wherever, didn't matter where I parked her, and if it, basically I just didn't care at this point. So that was symptom number one. Symptom number two, and again, this is gonna be more for the enthusiast, more folks, regular folks are not gonna understand this, but most car people, anytime they park their car anywhere, let's say you park in a parking spot out in the middle of nowhere to protect your car because you appreciate the car, you tend to look back at the car every single time. And you look at it, you're like, man, do I actually own this car? And you get this appreciation for it. This surge of happiness, not happening here, guys. I basically parked the car, as I shared, doesn't matter, and I literally walk away and don't even look back once. I've done it a couple of times, to be fair. And the car is a looker in certain angles, but there's just a lot of plastic bits on this car, even on the exterior where things look extremely cheap. You know, lots of plastic in the front, and then that big ass bumper in the back. The design's nice, but it looks very just plasticky, guys. Part of it, to be fair, could be that, you know, I've owned several Porsches, I've owned several Tesla. I had a Tesla Model S Plaid. I also had a Performance and Rivian, of course, we own that. And just the level of refinement and quality in the fit and finish, and the level of expense that those cars have internal relative to this, it's just night and day, guys. And I think that might be it. You know, part of it is the car is just not exciting. It's exciting from a performance perspective, but it falls quick. You know, again, I have a charger at the house, and every day if I drive this car, you know, I'm driving it in full N. So the range, I mean, goes down dramatically. And so I'm pretty much charging this car every couple of days compared to, say, my wife's Rivian, or when I had my Tesla Model S Plaid, or my Porsche Taycan. You know, what's interesting about the Porsche Taycan, I'm sorry to jump around a little bit here, you know, that car only got about 250 mile range, but when you took it on the highway, that car will pull like 300 miles. Unlike this is actually what they tell you of getting range of 230. I don't know. Some people are saying they're getting 250. The only way I could see that is if you're driving this thing in eco all the time. But if you're doing that, why are you buying this? Why aren't you buying the Hyundai IONIQ 5 Limited, which gives you a lot more range than the performance variants that you guys are seeing here? And some of the, just when you sit in the car, you know, I've had this car, again, I think it's going on 3 or 4 months. It's starting to do some weird creaks and rattles in the back hatch in particular. Certain turns, you'll hear like a creak or almost like metal, almost like, I can't explain it, guys. You would have to hear it. And then the other thing I noticed with the all-wheel drive, and I know you can do different settings where you can make more per torque and horsepower towards the rear compared to the front. I have it right in the middle settings. You will get some front wheel spin, which makes it a little bit uncomfortable, to say the least. I can't explain this, but again, you have to own the car. When you floor this car, which I have plenty of times, had some great times driving the car. It's a great driving experience. I can't take that away from this vehicle. It almost feels like the power is too much for the chassis. It's almost like they're using the base model Hyundai IONIQ 5 and they added way too much horsepower for the chassis, because the chassis on this car, at least to me, doesn't feel, what I call it, like a tank. You know, when you drive a Tesla Model S Plaid, it feels like a tank. Everything is buttoned up. Same thing with the Taycan. This feels a little bit like I can't explain it, man. It's just, it feels odd to me. It almost feels like things are about to crumble, but they don't. Of course they don't. I'm sure Hyundai added additional refinement with the chassis and made it stiffer. It's just not there. So I'm over it. I think this car lasted 3-4 months. The car is currently listed for sale. And you know, this car has taken a substantial bloodbath from a depreciation to the point that most cars, I tend to own them. Either I break even or I tend to lose, you know, maybe a couple of grand, if that, during my ownership experience. With this one, I think I might take a hit of around $7,000 to $10,000, because this car, with the miles it has, if you look online right now, you could probably get one for about $55,000, $56,000. That's retail. That means that the wholesale value on this car, or the trade-in value on this car, is going to be closer to like $45,000. So if you want to buy a car like this, my recommendation, it needs to be a secondary car. It needs to be track specific, and you should have a primary car. And again, maybe that's where my fault is. So I'll leave it at that. Let me know what you guys think. I know this might open up another can of worms, but it's the fact I own the car. A lot of people on this channel comment yet they've never owned a car, they've never driven an electric car. I just don't get where your wisdom around these cars and your comments are coming from. I guess it's just coming from thin air, I guess. I don't know. That's it, guys. I didn't want to put a Debbie Downer, but this car is gone. I've already listed it for sale. I can't wait till it's gone. I'm over it. It's not giving me the things I'm looking for in a car. And again, part of it is not Hyundai and the product. I think if you're looking at it from a specific path, such as performance, and that's where it all dies. That's it. I think you should have a secondary car. And if you're coming from a car that's a little bit more premium, i.e., say a Porsche Taycan or those type of, I've also had an Audi GT-RS, you're going to feel like you step down when it comes to levels of refinement. And maybe that's a mistake. Again, maybe I own that, but I won't allow that to happen again. I know I said a lot. I hope you guys enjoy that. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And it's possible that this might be the last vlog, unless the next vlog might be when I'm actually selling the car. As always, guys, make sure you subscribe and turn on your notifications and share the vlog where you can. Peace.